Hey everybody, it is Jordan Hawthorne. It is Will Goodwin at Will Badloos on X.com. We are having a somber show tonight. We have went all black. I broke out the chain, the black hat. Will is in the black t-shirt, the black headphones. This is a funeral of sorts. Which is crazy because we lost a backup quarterback in terms of the depth chart. But, of course, the breaking news, Tuesday, Wednesday, J.J. McCarthy needed knee surgery. He got knee surgery, fully toned meniscus, had to do the full operation, gonna be out for 6 months. I did the math for you. That's February. He can come back for the Super Bowl. That is not how NFL rosters work. But, of course, everybody in Minnesota, or every Minnesota fan, is highly disappointed by this. Especially he had that electric preseason game, which we're going to talk about. But first, we're going to talk about this kind of sad news, what it means for the team going forward. Will, we're going to skip the how you doings. It's kind of a sad show to kick things off here, but we will lighten up and we'll start talking about this football team because life goes on. What do you think the impact is here, from a roster standpoint? Do you have confidence in Donald and Mullins as like your 1-2 punch of quarterbacks if something was to happen to Sam? And then also maybe lead with this part. I should have asked this question in reverse. How disappointed were you on Tuesday when it was announced he was going to need knee surgery / today, Wednesday, when it was revealed it was a season-ending thing?
Yeah, well, when it was first announced that he had the injury, it was shocking because on Monday when O'Connell talked to the media before night practice, he talked about it as if it was general knee soreness that you might have after an NFL game. He took a couple hits in the pocket. He had a couple scrambles with really awkward slides and so, you might just end up having a little soreness. And so, I went to bed on Monday, not really worried about it at all. So waking up on Tuesday basically and hearing the news that this all had transpired and it was as bad as it is. And then ultimately this morning getting surgery to fully repair the torn meniscus, an injury that Minnesota sports fans know well. Karl Anthony Towns tore his meniscus this last season. He had a more minor tear, so he was able to come back, join the team for the playoffs, and have a big impact. That's different with McCarthy. Like Jordan said, it's a months-long recovery process, so we won't see him this season. To answer your second part of the question, how I feel about the quarterback room, I guess I would say I feel okay. On paper, it's just this. It's the same situation as last year, except you're swapping Kirk Cousins for Sam Darnold, which I don't think anybody is thrilled about. Now, if we're being practical about the way this season was likely to play out, Darnold was likely to get the start week 1, and if he played well enough, he'd probably keep the starting job for the whole season. So maybe we wouldn't see McCarthy at all anyways. So in terms of practicality on the field product, maybe it doesn't change that much. But that's also a big maybe. It's a big question mark of, if Darnold has to stay healthy for that to even be a realistic, proposition. And even then, you're expecting a guy who hasn't had a great track record to have a good, solid, steady year. So I don't feel great. It's not, it's not an enviable position to be in that the Vikings find themselves in again in the quarterback room, which is becoming rather common these last couple of years. Lots of lower body injuries to their starting quarterbacks or franchise quarterbacks. So, yeah, not fantastic. How about you?
Yeah, it's funny that you bring up that you had a oh yeah, it's just knee soreness, it's no big deal, because that was my reaction. And then for some reason on Tuesday, I got super anxious. I was like, What if that's something? And I'm not lying when I say this. I googled JJ McCarthy just to see what the news was, and the first thing that popped up on Google was like 22 seconds ago. I think Schefter had tweeted, Vikings rookie JJ McCarthy will need knee surgery, blah blah blah, and then about 2 minutes after that, people started saying it's the meniscus, and I was like, oh no. And then a similar thing happened today where I was like 2 minutes within the breaking news, where like I just googled JJ McCarthy to see if there was an update, and they were like, yeah, he had the full surgery, he's done for the year. And I was like, oh come on. And so like I didn't get the notification. It kind of sucked that it happened that way, by the way, because then my tablet notified me 3 different times from 3 different apps that JJ McCarthy was out for the year. Yesterday, it notified me 3 different times that he was having surgery. So it was like I went through this all like 4 or 5 times, plus my phone's dinging me about it. So like I just keep getting notified that this is happening. So I did what I always do when the Vikings break my heart. I listened to Prince's Purple Rain and just sat there and wondered, what I did to deserve this. To be, my favorite football team. It's my favorite sport. It's my favorite team. It's my absolute favorite thing that isn't my family in the world. And it just seems like this is oh my gosh, we just beat San Francisco and we're beating the crap out of Green Bay. This is the best day of, this is going to be a fun season. We're going to make this comeback. Oh my gosh, did Kirk Cousins just hop off the field on one leg and immediately get couted off on a gator? What is happening? Oh, he tore his Achilles? Well, Prince hit it, baby. Purple Rain. So, and I was singing a version of it to my wife whenever we got home tonight from our Bible study, and I was singing like oh JJ, and then I just wanted to see you throw touchdowns at US Bank, like that, and it just kind of fits. So it sucks. I agree with you from a standpoint of, yeah, the quarterback play is probably going to be bumpy. It's not going to be great. I think the defense is going to be better, which is something that we'll talk about, and we'll talk about, Dallas Turner and his preseason game. I'm going to put my bow on this, quarterback discussion by just saying, even if something happened, like I think O'Connell, Mullins, McCown, they all need to have a conversation, and they need to say, look, guys, and I know O'Connell won't do this because, he's Mr. Rah, rah, it's us against everybody. We can go, 17-0, whatever. They need to have a realistic discussion about, like, hey, let's just get JJ to 2K. Like that's all we need to focus on. Let's sling him some YOLO balls into quadruple coverage. Let him come down with half of them. Let's get this guy to 2,000 yards and make Jordan Hawthorne's fantasy team look really good. Like that's what I'm focused on at this point. It does feel like that kind of a season, and I'm excited for McCarthy to come back. I said that would be my bow. I do want to point this out. Stop comparing this to Joe Burrow blowing his knee out in week 12 or week 10, whatever it was, of his rookie season. He played over half a season of football against real NFL competition in the regular season with a bad offensive line, all that stuff. And then he got injured, and then he came back and took them to a Super Bowl. Next season is now just the default rookie season for McCarthy, which means my Super Bowl window started next season. It's pushed back a year for me now because McCarthy's, there's going to be a learning curve to live bullet real NFL games, and I just don't think McCarthy's going to do that. I don't know. Look, if he does, that would be the Tom Brady out. I mean, can't play his rookie year and then comes in his second year, his first real year playing and wins the Super Bowl. But I don't know. It's a damper, and I hate to start the show on such a down note, but I'll let you get, your piece here, and then we'll talk about the preseason game.
Yeah, that's kind of like where my mind went to, because, this season, and O'Connell talked about this the last couple of days when he's talked about McCarthy on like 3 separate press conferences, but this isn't a lost season for him. He can still get all of the mental reps, and O'Connell said he expects to see McCarthy at the facility as soon as they get back from Cleveland, be in all the meetings, participate fully in all that, which I'm sure he will. So in that regard, this season can still be a great learning opportunity for him. But you're right. The actual physical part of like you're playing a sport that requires reaction and muscle memory and all these things and precision, and he's not going to have that ability to, you know, really get a feel for sitting in an NFL pocket and making throws and all that. And I mean, we can transition a little bit here too to the preseason game where he did look really good. Um, I do think there's maybe a little bit of, you know, hope and future casting on Vikings fans saying that this was the greatest thing since, I don't know, Favre in 2009 or something. But there was a lot of good things that happened, and even the interception. Like as I watched that play, and when I watched it back, I wasn't that concerned about how the play happened. I think the read was fine. It was more just a misplaced ball, and it's gonna happen. Learning the speed of the game and all that stuff. So that whole performance by McCarthy, I think, was very encouraging, and I think from my perspective, at the time, now there's a little weird hindsight added to with the injury and everything, but at the time I had more of a sigh of relief of, okay, this kid can play, and he's a real NFL quarterback. Like I just remarked at the stark difference between him and Jaron Hall. Like it's night and day.
Yeah.
And we were excited. We were, holding out hope that Jaron Hall could be our guy last year, if you remember that. And just, watching what McCarthy did in, I think it was 31 snaps or something like that. He looked great. He looked like he belonged. He didn't look like he was, out of his depth and all that. And he made some really nice throws, had a beautiful deep ball to Tristan Jackson for a touchdown. So I think watching what he did on the field, it almost makes this a little bit more sad. You were talking about it before the show, right? Of how like he was trending in a direction that was going to make the coaching staff have a hard decision on who to start. And, I do think personally that I think they probably would have started Darnold anyways, unless Darnold just completely fell on his face over the next 2 weeks. But, something Keenan McCardell said earlier today on Paul Allen's radio show, just talking about how they are constantly asking their players to make their job difficult on, roster decisions, lineup decisions, starting decisions, whatever. And McCarthy was going to be doing that, and that's what he showed on Saturday afternoon. So I don't know how you interpreted his performance, but that's kind of what I saw, maybe at a high level.
Yeah, what I really liked from the preseason game was, one, I loved the ovo analyzation of every play. Like, they did that naked boot to the left, and he tried to, like, side on one, and it wasn't accurate. And I had to watch, I watched multiple film breakdowns where they're like, he didn't set his feet right, and we don't want to see this. This is a Patrick Mahomes throw, and we don't want you trying this. And it's like, guys, I don't know how to tell you this, but, like, you realize, and I'm only bringing him up because he used to play here, you realize Cousins missed some throws sometimes. Like, it wasn't, it's not like this guy's going to go 20 for 20 every game or 50 for 50. Like, he's going to miss some throws. He's going to have a couple overthrows, a few underthrows. Like, it's not perfection. No one has ever played. Tom Brady threw interceptions. I just thought it was, people were overreacting in that direction as well as overreacting in the other direction. They were like, did you see both of his touchdowns? And it's like, yeah, one of them was a beautiful deep ball that was hit in stride. I don't think there's a defender that can cover that. The other one was a busted coverage where he basically just had to make the layup, and he made the layup. And he gets a little bit of credit for making the layup, but not that much. I mean, if Bonnie hits a layup in yeah, you have to. Yeah. So, but I thought he showed a lot of poise. I thought he showed command. He had a really good play where he started to throw a quick slant on a third down. His receiver slipped, and he was able to tuck the ball and then kind of hit a spin move to get out of the pocket and then create with his legs. And I think he showed you all the reasons that Vikings fans should be excited for him to play next season now. And that is, he brings an athleticism to the quarterback position we haven't seen since Keenum, and I think it's even higher than Keenum. And he's also, I think, a more accurate passer than Keenum was, and just a better overall player than Keenum was. And I wanted to do a video, and this was going to be more of a solo project, and it's not going to happen now that he's been injured. We might do it next season, but it was kind of talking about, you always hear like ceiling and flow. And those are the two that you hear. And I wanted to do like an attic, a ceiling, a living room, a floor, and a basement, and just go through all the possible scenarios of where it was. And I think it changed from his like basement worst case scenario. I think his like worst case scenario as a quarterback now is being a guy like, I don't know, is Case Keenum an appropriate basement? Like the worst case scenario is he's a mid backup, but you can win with him, but you're not going to give him a big extension, that kind of stuff. So I came away with it happy. I was excited. And like I said, I think he was competing for that scouting job, and I think there was a chance that he had it, before the season started. And that's not just over. I mean, I've thought that since he got into camp and he started tearing camp up. I mean, I think that it was clear that him and Donald were operating on, they were a lot closer than I think people would have thought after mini camps back in spring. I want to talk about a couple other players from that preseason game that stood out, though. One of them being Tristan Jackson, who I thought had a tremendous day. I mean, he went over 100 yards. He had a touchdown catch. He was the guy who JJ hit on the perfect deep ball. So Tristan Jackson's a guy. He's fighting for what we talked before the show is kind of like a meaningless wide receiver 5 or 4 position. Might be a little bit more meaningful with Addison getting carted off today, having an ankle issue. He was on crutches. And also Addison is probably staring down a multiple game suspension. So Tristan Jackson seeing the field is not completely out of the question, this upcoming season. So I thought Tristan Jackson looked really good. I thought he ran his routes effectively, and I think Jalen Naylor is also making Vikings fans get excited with his ability to create separation. And, I know Jefferson wasn't playing, but Naylor was making plays with the first team offense against the Raiders' first team defense. Props to Vegas for playing their first team defense. Not a lot of people do that, but that's an exciting opportunity for Vikings fans because it feels more like a real thing than they typically do. So, I think that the Vikings' young, underrated wide receivers, if you want to call them that, I think they had a good showing and gave a lot of promise for the depth that we have at that position. If a guy like JJ goes down again, if Addison is going to miss time due to the suspension or due to an injury, whatever that would be, did you have a position group that stood out to you? And it doesn't have to be offense, obviously, that we're going to talk about the defensive side too, but what position group to you stood out and kind of made you hopeful for this upcoming season?
Yeah, I mean, I think the wide receivers are going to get talked about a lot, and rightfully so. They're a flashy position. The Vikings have, historically had good ones there, and all that. And this crew looks a little maybe deeper than we had thought. And I think the need for a third wide receiver that is not currently on the team, I think, is less than we had thought.
Yeah.
Now, that's assuming that Jordan Addison's ankle injury is minor, like they're talking about. That's assuming that his suspension is only 3 games, that he doesn't go to jail, 2 things that are actual possibilities. And so, all bets are off with the way this season is going. Vikings are dropping like flies these days. Yeah. But, one quick thing on Tristan Jackson, something that Keenan McCarthy again talked about on PA's show today was how, his job is to make sure that his receivers get a job, even if it's not with the Vikings, because they understand that there's limited roster spots. And so he prepares them all to be starters is kind of how he talked about it. He's not preparing these guys to be, back of the bus guys who, just carry people's water for them. And if you think back to last season, the guys who won that Atlanta Falcons game, of course, yes, was Josh Jacobs, but also Tristan Jackson caught a huge 2-point conversion that tied the game in the second half. Brandon Powell caught the game-winning touchdown pass. Two guys that were fringe, roster at best when the season started. We were, Tristan was on practice squad to begin the season. BP was, I think, maybe the wide receiver 4. And so, but that game, you don't have Jefferson. KJ Osborne goes down in the middle of that game. So you're left with Jordan Addison and Brandon Powell and Tristan Jackson as your receiving options. And so, although, even before the show, I was kind of laughing about how we debate and go back and forth about who the 53rd guy in the roster is going to be, it does end up mattering. So it is good to see, though, in that regard, that Vikings wide receivers are showing some meaningful progress and promise. Jalen Naylor is all but a lock for the roster, whereas in years past it was, injury this, injury that. He's at this point looking like the third receiver, and we talked about with Addison, could be the second. So, something that I do want to talk about is some young defenders. Maybe not a position group specifically, but just young defenders. Dallas Turner looked awesome, and he had a sack in the red zone that forced a field goal. He had another pass rush that did not result in a sack, but got to the quarterback, hit him as he threw, kind of thing. And McCarthy looked like he belonged. And there is this innate fear in Vikings fans, I think we can all agree, that we're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. And of course, with McCarthy, that shoe did drop, right? He has a good game on Saturday, and then 2 days later, we all hear, knee injury, out for the season. With Dallas Turner, though, going into this game, I'm sort of just waiting, like, he's going to be too small. The tackles are just going to swallow him up. He's not going to be NFL big enough. There's going to be something that they didn't tell us, right? He looked great. And
he looked so fast.
Yeah. So fast. And just a couple other names that I'll throw out there, and then I'll let you chime in. Again, with the caveat that we get excited about guys like, what was that guy last year? T.Y. McGill. I was banging on the table to get him on the roster. He had like a 3-sack preseason game, and I was saying, like, get this guy in the roster.
Yep.
He got cut like the next day. So I think with some of these, preseason performances, you have to take them with a, Great Salt Lake truckload of salt, and just understand that Richter's going up against guys who are going to be driving for UPS in a month. So you have to understand that there's tiers to this, there's levels to this, there's varying levels of meaning to these snaps. But Bo Richter was a guy who looked good. He looked fast. He looked strong. Another military academy guy, if I'm not mistaken, from Air Force.
Yep.
Edge rusher. And then the other guy, the heralded fan favorite prospect X from The Athletic, the player, affectionately known as LDR. He looked really good. Levi Drake Rodriguez. He had a sack. He had a pass breakup. So again, late round draft pick in LDR, and a not undrafted guy in Bo Richter. Two, defensive front guys that looked good. Will be definitely battling for back of the roster stuff, but I liked what I saw from those guys.
Yeah, I like that Levi, it's not like Levi Drake Rodriguez had a good game, but this position is up, Jalen Naylor. No, let me rephrase, because Naylor is, I think, going to see some snaps. He's the wide receiver 3. Tristan Jackson had a good game. I don't think he is going to see the field that much this season. Maybe he's going to get a handful of snaps, but it's not going to be this huge impact unless there's an injury. LDR is fighting for, he could have significant snaps at that position group. That position group is wide open. I've talked about anyone that's been on this show, Dustin of Vikes Now included, has talked about how wide open that position is, to the point where me and Dustin, when we did a show, whenever, we talked about how, I think we're all kind of just expecting the Vikings to trade down and take a D tackle in the draft next year. Like that's what the early bets are on. And so it's so wide open that I think LDL does have a chance to make a name for himself in the preseason and get shots in the regular season to maybe be a high level contributor and see what he can do, against real legitimate talent. And going back to Dallas Tono, because obviously he's the one that like should actually be good. You don't expect a 7th rounder to come in and be good right away, if at all. But Dallas Tono should be, and some people considered him the best defensive prospect in this draft. And that's not just at his position. That's best on that side of the ball. And he really did look like a man playing amongst men. I mean, the Raiders were playing those starting 5 offensive linemen. It wasn't a bunch of slappies. It wasn't a bunch of backups. It was grown-ass men, and he looked fast. And I loved listening to Ben Lebo talk about his performance because Lebo broke down. He was like, he kept hitting him with speed. He kept hitting him with speed. He was just going around the outside. And then when he needed to get a sack, he hesitated and feinted like he was going to go inside. So the tackle bit like he kind of did like a double fake. He like acted like it was going to be speed. Then he faked to the inside. The tackle bit incredibly hard on that. And then he went around the outside and he got there with speed. And he was like, the ability to set up a professional football left tackle at that level and his age is incredible. So I think he has the football IQ to do it, because I think that's a huge part of pass rushing that gets underrated. It's not just are you a physical freak. You have to be a physical freak and incredibly football intelligent to be one of the best. And that's why, I've said a couple of times this offseason, we are talking about a guy who could be in that Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, Von Miller, like this. Oh, yeah, he's one of the best in the league. He's the 97 overall on your Madden team. He's he's the face of your defense. And I think he showed that he definitely belongs in the NFL. He's definitely got a bright future in front of him. And I don't think he's just going to be this situational, bring him in the third and long situations with Van Ginkel and Grenard. No, it's probably going to be him and Grenard, and Van Ginkel's going to be the most situational used guy. And I think that, even if him and Van Ginkel are splitting snaps, I think that's fine. Keep everybody, breathing lightly. Everybody feels good. And, just punish offensive lines. I am concerned about the secondary. I didn't think the secondary looked great. We've had so many injuries to the secondary. This is how I'm going to transition into the meeting that the Vikings had with Stephon Gilmore on Monday. No contract came out of it. Just a meeting. They just had coffee, I guess. Just wanted to say hello. Will, do you think signing Stephon Gilmore this season is a good thing? Do you think it matters? Are you in the camp of Sam Darnold's our starting quarterback, we're not winning anything, why would we sign Stephon Gilmore? Or do you think the Vikings should explore maybe a trade for a bigger named, maybe more long-term solution to the position?
I will take what is behind door number 1 in this situation, because I think similar to the Patrick Peterson experience, I think a guy like Stephon Gilmore, who has won a Defensive Player of the Year, I believe he was 99 on Madden at one point. He has made, he's made a name for himself. He's been in the league for a dozen years, as long as Harrison Smith. Same draft as Smith, same draft as Kirk Cousins. So yeah, he's getting old, but playing for Dallas last year, correct?
Yeah.
He was still a really good player. When he played for Indianapolis 2 years ago, a really good player, solid contributor. You're not going to get, locked down best in the league like he was at the peak of his powers, but having a veteran presence in the room at, not that much money with a team that still has cap space, it's it's a flyer too. You know, you're not going to be signing this guy long term. I'd much rather do that because think about like how much a Caleb Evans still continues to talk about Patrick Peterson, how much he meant to his development as a rookie. Um, Having a veteran in the room who's been there, who's done that, who knows how to go about it the right way, has won Super Bowl, it's more value than simply just winning games in 2024.
Yeah.
Now, will Stephon Gilmore want to come play for a team that has a massive question mark at quarterback and could either go, 10-7 or 5-12? And I don't think anybody'd be that terribly surprised by either record. Maybe not. Maybe he doesn't want to come play for that team, sort of like hovering in this no man's land. But strictly speaking from the Vikings perspective, I would want to bring him in rather than making some big trade for a bigger name who might be expensive and then you're not really sure what the future holds. You would prefer to see if some of your young guys can pan out. Don't forget that Mekhi Blackman will be back next year. There's in my opinion, there's too many question marks that still remain to really dip into like the future perspective of the position. So I like the approach. Whether or not Gilmore wants to sign here is another thing, but I would like to have him.
Yeah, I think I would also like that. I think everything you said, the longer, the more I age, like a fine wine, the wiser I get. And I do think that like this idea of like Sam Darnold's the quarterback, who cares? It's kind of malarkey. It's just kind of it's nonsense because like if you are Kwesi, you do have to look at things as okay, we have to try and win now, but also we need to set ourselves up to be in a really good position in 2029. And you have to kind of do that balancing act, of like you want to make sure that things are free and flowing so that way you have the ability to choose down the road, but you also want to try and be as competitive as you can right now. And Gilmore, if you can just get him on 1-year deal, no dead money next year, like no shenanigans. If you can just straight up family show, but like if you can just one night stand this guy, just bring him in, send him home the next day. Like come April, we'll never hear his name again. It could be a fun ride, and he could stink. And who cares if he stinks? You can just bench him. What else were you going to do with that money? The only reason I wouldn't be okay with that is if you were going to trade for someone who was like a real guy. Like I know there were, like 0.01 on the Richter scale rumblings about like a Marshawn Lattimore trade earlier in the offseason, as the Saints kind of look to free up cap space and do all that. And there were some rumors the Vikings may be making calls, things like that. So like if that was still on the table, I think I'd be okay with that, to trade for like a big name. Like, okay, yeah, that guy's like top 10 in the league at his position. Get him in here. We've got the cheap QB. This is why we have the cheap QB, so we can do this kind of stuff. I just worry, and the way the Vikings like draft outlook is right now, we need to solve the D-tackle problem. We also need to solve the corner problem. And the way that you typically solve those problems is with like first and second round picks. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Vikings do not have a second round pick next year. I think they are out of those. I think they don't have a third round pick either. I think they have like a 1, 4, 5, 7 if I'm correct. But I could be wrong about that. But, I think that there's a lot of uncertainty with how many picks we're going to have in next year's draft. And so there's going to be holes on the team still that you can't quite fill. And it's not like we're going to have another 2 first-round pick draft where we can land a good D-tackle and a good corner in the first round that can immediately contribute. And so it might just be next season either a free agent pops up, it's Mekhi Blackman or something like that. But, did you pull up the draft picks?
Yeah, they only have the right now.
Oh wait, hang on. We're getting real choppy audio here. Let's give this a second to breathe. I think you're back, and I think you're good now. Go ahead.
If you can hear me, The only picks that they currently have are a first-round pick and 2 fifth-round picks. That I think you lost me again there, but
A little bit.
First-round pick, 2 fifth-round picks.
All right, while we get Will figured out here, I don't know what's going on, man. The internet's not being our fun tonight, and it's like when you're not talking, I can see like all your movements and stuff, and then like you start talking, and it immediately gets choppy. But I got that they have a first and 2 fifths. Beautiful. So yeah, like not a lot of picks to solve problems, but Kwesi kind of moves around, and it might just be a light draft year next year. So I'm going to really quickly, while we try to figure this out with the internet issues, I want to talk about Will Reichard for a second, because Will Reichard had 2 kicks. I believe one of them was blocked, and he hit a game winner. I was a little, not upset, but a little disappointed, I guess, that the Vikings got so close for the game-winning kick, because I kind of wanted to see Will Reichard make, like I wanted it to be like a 50-yarder. And so I wish they would have like taken some knees. It's a preseason game. Who cares if you win or lose? I want to see the kick. I don't want to see Jalen Hall this season. I saw Jalen Hall last season. I was excited about the Atlanta game. I was not as excited after about 15 seconds of that Green Bay game that he started. So I wanted to see Will Reichard, what he was going to do under pressure. It sucked that one got blocked. That's not really on him. But he made his one kick. I think he looked pretty solid. There's nothing else we can really say about it. He made his extra points. That's good. Did you have anything that you wanted to add about Will Reichard?
Not a whole lot. The only thing that I just wanted to talk about was, I think in general the special teams was terrible. Just like peanut butter spread, the whole thing. It was just bad. The left side of the line gets just absolutely trucked on the field goal attempt that got blocked. Kickoffs and kickoff returns, there wasn't anything glaringly bad or good necessarily. In general, like punt coverage was meh.
Yeah.
There just wasn't much to be excited about with the special teams. Apart, obviously, from Will Reichard's game winner. One thing of note, I think Ryan Wright looked pretty good, which actually was encouraging. He was really good his rookie year in 2022 and really not good in his second year. I think you lost me again, of course.
Yeah, we've lost audio here, so I think what Will's trying to get at here is splitting the difference between year 1 and year 2. Is that where we were going?
Basically, Ryan Wright's got to win a punting competition. It looks like he's going to win it. He's the one who's doing the holding. If you noticed, he has taken all the holding reps for the most part in practice. He's going to be the punter. He looked really good. He had an average of like 57 yards on Saturday. So I don't know when it becomes official, but I don't think Seth Vernon's going to be punting for the Vikings this year.
Yeah, I think Seth Vernon is the sacrificial lamb for the Stephon Gilmore signing. Like, you got to free up a spot. Why do we have 2 punters? Let's go ahead. Let's make this baby official. I don't know. Maybe they're playing it safe in case something happens. Ryan Wright gets injured or something. But I highly doubt that he's going. I highly doubt that Seth Vernon will be the punter for this team after taking a grand total of goose egg 0 holding snaps or holding reps, which is super duper important. What else is on the itinerary? Go ahead.
I do think. Quick aside, I do think Seth Vernon had a tackle.
Oh, heck yeah.
He's an athlete. If you look at him, and they were talking about him on the broadcast, like he was I don't know what position he played in college or whatever, but he was, he looks like an athlete. He doesn't look like Ryan Wright. And he made a real tackle. Like, it was like open field, like not just, he tripped him, but it was like a Pat McAfee level tackle. So that's what we like to see.
I think the disrespect to Ryan right there was crazy, first of all. Saying he doesn't look like an athlete. The dude looks like Tyson Fury on a football field. He's like 6'4" and like 250. He's the same height weight combo as Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry's like this god amongst men out there. So, like, I'm just saying, maybe we give Ryan Wright a couple snaps at running back at the goal line. You know, like maybe that's the
maybe that will solve the Vikings red zone running issue.
yeah, like the 84 Bears or whatever, they had like the footage and they'd put him in at fullback. Like, let's put our punter in at fullback and let him take some names out on the football field. All right, I think that about caps off preseason game number 1. We got preseason game number 2 to talk about. The Vikings started doing joint practices today, Wednesday. This goes up on Thursday. They will continue joint practices today, Thursday, with the Cleveland Browns. They are in Cleveland. I don't know if you saw Ivan Pace's Instagram post when they landed in Cleveland, but he said, and I'm quoting him directly here, "Ew," which is how everyone from Cincinnati feels about the land of whatever up in Cleveland. We all think it's nasty, and we don't understand why it has a football team. Columbus deserves a football team more than Cleveland, 1,000%. I don't know why I'm talking so much smack about that city, but that's my opinion.
I don't know if the Buckeyes would allow a professional team in Columbus.
I don't think they would, and also I don't think the NFL would want one like that close to, because Columbus is like 2 hours from Cincy. Like it's very close. Like the distance is like at least like Cincinnati is equidistant from Nashville and Cleveland. So like, you know, you can at least like there's like a almost 5-hour drive to get there. But anyway, they are doing the joint practice thing. They're trying to keep it non-con, like it's no tackle, but it's still like kind of contact and it's physical. No fights today that I saw. A little bit of chippiness. Browns defender reportedly screamed at the Viking sideline like y'all couldn't catch a cold today or something like that. Denzel Ward's pretending to have a concussion so he doesn't have to go up against Justin Jefferson in one-on-ones. I get it. I wouldn't want to face that guy either. That dude's about to hit 2K, having Nick Mullins throw him hospital balls every week. It's gonna be, you know, and this is what sucks because our rookie quarterback's out. So now I don't want to watch the game on Saturday. I will. I don't want to, because the whole reason I was so excited about watching the preseason games was because of JJ McCarthy. And so now I'm going to watch it, I guess, to see Dallas Tono. That's where I'll kick us off at. I think I'm excited to see Dallas Tono go up against Cleveland. I don't know how many starters Cleveland will play. I know Sam Darnold's not going to play in this game. Kevin O'Connell, I think, is taking this approach of the practices are more important than the little game that's televised. So the starters are going to practice. They are not going to play in a full contact game that means nothing. So Tono might not even play. I think he will get some run, but I hope Tono does get a chance to play, and I would like to see him have a similar performance where it's every snap it's just like, holy crap, that guy shoots off the line, and just continue that kind of elite speed rush that he seems to have already out of the gate here. So who are you excited? What are you excited to see on Saturday in a game that means absolutely nothing and will only remind us of the sorrow that this week brought?
Yeah, I think to your point, the practices are going to be more important, and that's what I think the Browns will probably take the same approach. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of players that we know their names playing on Saturday. I'd honestly be surprised if Turner plays, just because he was a little gimpy after the game on Saturday, so he did not participate in night practice on Monday. So part of me thinks give him 2 practices here and then give him the day off Saturday. I don't even know what he was banged up with, to be honest. But I would say the 2 things that I'm looking for. One, just that no quarterbacks get hurt. Frankly. Like, as much as we will hopefully never see Nick Mullins or Jaren Hall take a snap this year, the Vikings just can't afford one of them to get hurt. They're going to have to go get somebody then if that happens. And Nick Mullins, you know, emits a lot of emotions when you hear that name, because all you just think about is, like you said, hospital balls and interceptions and hope dashed away and all that from last season. But you need him around. You need the veteranness. You need the ability to an emergency plug-in guy if, Darnold does get hurt in week 6. So you're not turning to either some new guy or Jaron Hall. I also want to see what Kene Nwangwu can do at running back. He had the, slip through the line, burst of speed, touchdown on Saturday, which was awesome. I would imagine that we're going to see a lot of him. Probably a lot of him, Myles Gaskin, maybe Dwayne McBride in the game on Saturday. We've sort of all been waiting for Kene Nwangwu to become a viable backup running back option. And now it sort of feels like, the lane is sort of cleared for him to be, and he's going to be on the roster because of his kick returning and his elite speed there, and he's a good special teamer in general. But inevitably, when Chandler or Jones misses a game, I want to know if Kene Nwangwu can be a viable option to be the second running back in that game.
Yeah.
There's no NFL game where one running back takes all the handoffs. That just doesn't happen anymore. So I want to know if I can trust Kene Nwangwu taking a handoff, making the right read, making a nice cut for a 4 or 5 yard gain. We know he's fast. We know he can break away from everybody if he's given a lane. But I want to see him, make smart reads and have consistent run after consistent run. In hopefully, and I would assume to be a, heavy-ish workload.
Yeah, I don't know what he's done to not even want like a Taysom Hill middle stage of the career Cordell Patterson type job. Well, it's like, for Patterson specifically, it's like, yeah, you're the kickoff guy. We're gonna put the ball in your hands 2 times a game in some capacity. It's a pitch, it's a screen, something like that. But when Patterson was with New England, if he came in the game, I think it was pretty obvious. It was like, hey, that guy's getting the ball, and then he just had to do something with it. And he did, and he ended up becoming a pretty decent running back in Atlanta and everything. I'm not trying to take anything away from that, but which is crazy because we drafted him to be a wide receiver. But that Taysom Hill role where it's like, hey, Taysom's in the game, something's happening. I don't know what he's going to do, but he's going to do something. And so it's shocking that he hasn't developed into at least a gadget guy. I don't know if it's just because he's so bad in pass protection that O'Connell feels that putting him in for a trick play would be like a one-time, they know something's up and there's no point in running a trick play if the defense knows there's a trick coming. So I don't know. It's kind of crazy to me. And that was kind of Ty Chandler's knock last year, was everyone was like, yeah, he's clearly the best running back on the team. They don't trust him in pass protection, and he kept getting blown up in pass protection. And so they go and they get Aaron Jones, who is a veteran and has that presence and everything. So I agree. I would love to see Nwangwu, own a spot and actually get some offensive playing time. And honestly, I would rather see him have a really good, consistent day of picking up blitzers and helping in pass protection than see him whip off a 50-yard touchdown. I know that's the most sexy thing to watch on TV, but if he has a day where he doesn't get knocked out of his cleats and he holds his own in pass protection, I think that's going to go a lot further for him seeing the field than having an explosive run against UPS drivers will go. And so I love that pick, though, because I think we were all excited when Nwangwu came out and we drafted him, to see what he was going to be able to bring. I'm going to bring up another one, and I hate to just say rookies here, but I would like to see Will Reichard get an opportunity to kick a couple of balls, 40 yards plus 50, maybe a 50-yarder sprinkled in there somewhere in Cleveland. We're that towards the end of summer now, but at least in Ohio. What'd you say?
Yeah, the wind is always a problem there.
It's up by a lake, and yeah. So seeing him kick outside in those conditions, I'm not saying it's going to be this crazy windstorm, but just a breeze, a light August breeze in Cleveland. Let's see how he can handle kicks in that environment. because, that is something that Vikings kickers have to deal with. We play in Chicago every season. We play in Lambeau every season. And then obviously every other team has the chance of having a difficult kicking environment. So I would like to see Reichel get to try his hand at a couple kicks. This is my hot take. This is what I want to see, and I'm going to make this my final thoughts, if that's okay. Do we have anything else on the agenda that we want to get to?
Just quick thing on the Will Reichert situation. This even makes it more important to see him kick. Wind is going to be able 13 miles an hour, whatever. It's probably relatively average. The weather could be wet. We could be looking at rain, thunderstorms.
Heck yeah.
So obviously that makes it more difficult, and maybe doesn't give you like the proper scouting report on a kicker because it's not going to be raining every game. But like Jordan said, New York, week 1, you never know what New York weather is. There's always rain there. Just be getting weird slick conditions right out of the gate. So, anyways, that's an aside. Weather changes. The forecast might be completely different tomorrow. But
yeah, no, I love it.
If there is rain and wind, it's a good thing. So go ahead.
Yeah. My final thoughts are going to be, and this isn't going to happen. This is mostly a joke, but my final thoughts are going to be talking directly to the football injury gods. You are cruel. You take, and it seems like they never give, but that's okay. I would like to offer up, in return, what we get is a season full of mostly healthy, like health for the big names. Okay, you can have you can have a backup lineman. You can have that. We will give you Jaren Hall. You can have him. You can just take him away. He can blow his knee out on something. Just stop with the injuries. There's so many of them. The past 5 weeks, I'm going to stop joking for one quick second. The past 5 weeks, Vikings fans dealt with the death of a player, followed by a DUI, followed by a blown ACL. What was it? McCarthy knee injury. Addison ankle issue. It has been a brutal training camp. So if I'm the Vikings, there's a piece of me that is seriously considering. Jaren Hall, congratulations. You are playing every snap in the preseason. We are going to get full quotas. It's a tryout for you. Maybe you play well enough. Somebody wants to trade us, something for you or something. I don't think he's going anywhere because obviously, I think he's going to make the roster. He's going to be the emergency third quarterback, that whole thing. But man, I don't want Nick Mullins to touch the field because I do think Nick Mullins shockingly gives us a better chance to win than Ryan Tannehill would. And also would be more fun to watch than Ryan Tannehill would. So as many interceptions as he throws, as many YOLO balls as though it is fun to watch him play. And this is assuming Sam Darnold doesn't stay healthy. Well, this is a very negative outlook. I mean, hopefully Sam just stays healthy the whole season. He hasn't. I'm not even going to say that. I'm not even going to say anything about his previous injury histories and the lack thereof. But I don't want to risk the two guys that would be fun to watch play. So throw the guy in there that we don't want to see play. And then if he does happen to get injured in this game, go sign Joe Schmo. Go sign Tanner Morgan for the 15th time to be your emergency third quarterback. Because, let's be honest, man, I don't think this season's going anywhere with the quarterback situation as it is right now. Anywhere that important. I think we're staring down the barrel of a 7-10 season, which is okay. We should have fun. And this show is going to be a lot of fun. I think we have a lot of cool ideas that are in the tank. I don't want to spoil anything, but definitely some more content coming at you as the regular season kicks off. Unfortunately, not Will in everything, but Will where it matters. Will in the heart of it, because the heart of this show does, this show bleeds Will Goodwin. Speaking of Will Goodwin, I said it at the beginning of the show. If you're not following this guy at Will Bad Lose on X, you're missing out. You got to check out the Bad Loser blog, and then you also need to go check out VikingsTerritory.com, and then follow myself at Twitter, or the show, I guess, at LTB Vikings on X. I said Twitter. That's probably not correct a year later. Let's see, what else do I need to plug? Shop Unified. I think that's about it. This is going to be fun. I don't care. You can take everything from me. I'm going to watch every game. I'm going to have fun watching every game. I'll probably get pissy whenever they lose, even though like, what did I expect to happen? But it's gonna be fun. It's football season. I'm not gonna be a Debbie Downer about it. I've been clamoring for this since February. When it went away, I was immediately like, I want it back. It's back, and here we go. So we're gonna take the good and the bad with it. And also, I'm a little bit of a Jacksonville fan this year. That's okay. I just have to have my Duval, like the AFC. They're about as far away from Minnesota as you can get. I went with, I'm just gonna pull for Jacksonville a little bit. I might watch a few Jacksonville games just to keep myself entertained if things don't go well up in the land of 10,000 lakes. Will, I'll let you take us home. This has been a fun one, so I'll let you steer this ship into the dock.
Honestly, I don't have that much left in the mind at this point in the show. My final thoughts are gonna be: watch the preseason game if you want, but you don't have to.
Beautiful.
There's really not a lot to take away from it. I don't think. Just everybody, please stay healthy. I am hoping, this is a real final thought here. I'm really hoping that they do get some good work out of these Cleveland practices. I think a lot of the Cleveland Browns are banged up and injured. Alec Lewis was reporting about just basically the entirety of the defensive front for the Browns is hurt. So that really sucks for the Vikings, reps this week. But, the team seems to love these. I'm just hoping no more Vikings like Addison, gimp off the field, because it's the last thing we need. But final thought. The season is only 2.5 weeks away. They will open on September 8th at the New York Giants. It's getting fun. College football is around the corner.
5 days.
The baseball pennant chase is on. It's a good time to be a sports fan. We will talk, I would assume, next week. Yet to iron out our schedules, but we'll be back soon. Maybe doing a little bit of 53-man roster talk, maybe not, depending on, other priorities. Hopefully no more injuries to talk about, and potentially recap, what meaningful bits we can get from the Cleveland game, as well as talking about the final opportunity, as Kevin talks about, in the preseason, which will be at the Philadelphia Eagles. So for Jordan, for Will, this was fun. Thanks for tuning in for a long show tonight. We had a lot to get off our chest. We'll be back next week. Skol, y'all.